What's going on YouTube? Culturedog Sam Hatch back here with another Laserdisc update video. It has been a hot minute since I've done one of these things. It's been a busy, long journey the past couple months. I've gotten tons of LEDs here. Well, a decent stack, so we got a lot of stuff to go through. I've been redesigning this whole room. Should do an update tour of that at some point and show you what's going on. Redesign my home theater. Yeah, it's been a lot of work, so I've been focusing far too much on that and far too little on making videos. But hopefully everyone's been enjoying the podcast, at least in my absence of seeing my grizzly mug. Let's get into some stuff I've picked up on LD over the past few months. First is the final piece of my 007 THX puzzle. Well, just about. There might be a few other things. But from the late 90s reissues, this one came out in 1998. Image Entertainment and MGM UA, a THX Dolby Digital version of Thunderball. I picked this up pretty cheap on eBay. Unfortunately, the jacket's relatively beat, so I'm definitely going to upgrade at some point, but this and Spy Who Loved Me tend to go for a little bit too much money. But I at least have a copy, and it looks fantastic, so I watched it pretty much immediately. So yeah, great stuff. Then my friend Sylvain reached out to me, someone I had met on Laserdisc Forever, and is a French film enthusiast, and he reached out and let me know that he had a bunch of Laserdiscs, and if I wanted to have them, I could, just pay for shipping. It was a really awesome deal, and he knew in particular that I was a big James Bond collector. I haven't seen me digging up things like that Thunderball disc, but he said he had GoldenEye in French, so I said, I will pick that up. Sadly, I do not own a PAL player, so I'm going to pick one of those up because I'd love to get something to watch my lone PAL music disc, Tears for Fears. But now I've got a French version of GoldenEye. And the interesting thing about French LDs is, unlike Japan or a lot of other foreign countries where they imported American movies, they would usually have the movies in English but then subtitled. But in France, they actually made dubs. And so this is actually dubbed into French, so a lot of times they'll say Version Française on there. And yeah, it's got the CinemaScope logo on there. No Dolby Digital, because it's PAL, and I don't think they ever were able to implement that. But yeah, it's also from Score Games. I thought that was pretty cool. X-Rental, apparently, or a used copy through them. So it's neat. All the write-ups all in French, and the only thing that's a bummer is it's not a gatefold, but still pretty cool. So he had a bunch of other things that he asked if I'd be interested in, and there's some movies that I enjoy so much that'd be cool to have, like different versions from around the world, and he had some of those. One thing, I'm a big Luc Besson fan, so I had to get the version longue of Le Grand Bleu, and this will be a neat counterpart to my NTSC version, though it says it's in 1.85 to 1, which can't be right. This one is a gatefold. Unseal it. Got some dolphin activities there. But yeah, pretty cool. And while we were messing around with Luc Besson material, had to also get Le Cinquième Element. And this is a gorgeous gatefold jacket. I'll show you this guy too. Again, the French version, Hi-Fi Dolby Surround. Yeah, this one lists CinemaScope 2.35 to 1, so, or actually it just says 2.35. Also in PAL, made in DADC Austria, but it's got a cool, awesome interior gatefold. Wicked stuff. Then I also got a relatively late release Luc Besson wrote, but did not direct. This film came out in, looks like 98 on home video, 97 at theaters, but a Gerard Perret film called Taxi. You may have seen the remake with Jimmy Fallon and Teen Laquifa, but this is the original. I've got the first 3 films. I haven't seen the 4th one, and who knows if they've done more. But interestingly, Sylvester Stallone shows up in the 3rd one for a hot second. But yeah, classic stuff. Silly comedy. Fun. And This one's a beater. I think it was another X-Rental or whatever, but couldn't say no to Dune. And again, a gatefold. Might as well show you the interior. Again, dubbed into French. 3 sides, or 3 faces. But, yeah. Another cool one. And sadly, this one's not a gatefold, but it's another used one from Score Games. I like it. It's got the Oscar 1995 info on here. But a little film called Pulp Fiction. Version française again, so dubbed in French. And, yeah, cool stuff. Looking forward to getting a PAL NTSC player and experiencing that 4% speed up, because PAL was 25 frames per second, and instead of figuring out a way to work around the difference between film being 24 frames per second and its running time, they just decided to speed it up and do 4% speed up. So everything's running 1 extra frame per second. So it kind of catches up on you. This is another flick. I'm surprised they didn't release this as a gatefold. That was the other thing. I think they can have longer sides because there's no Dolby Digital or anything like that, but it's over a 2-hour film just on 1 disc. But Seven, one of my all-time favorite films, and cool stuff. I love that, you know, it's got the French poster, and yeah, it's awesome. Awesome gear. So, mega shout out to Sylvain for hooking that up. And he's a super cool guy, and I got that stuff wicked fast, so he really went out of his way to hook a brother up. Speaking of hooking a brother up, I also got a mystery package from Sean Robert Gillette of the Laserdisc Forever page, and of course the Laserdiscotheque podcast. But he sent me some gear, including my first and only Criterion Silver box, the originator, Citizen Kane. Yep. I mentioned on the new podcast that I actually don't own a copy of this anymore after I sold my DVD copy. So it just comes with a normal box top and then collectible foam insert. And how many discs we got here? 3 discs. Pretty cool label. Looks nice. And it's got a very, very nice letter from John Mulvaney, a Criterion in Santa Monica, talking about the features of this and talking about the visual essay and, telling you how to work the still frames and all that sort of stuff. They really let you know deep info about all their extras. And this also came with a warranty card, which I thought was pretty interesting. But yeah, Criterion were the ones that kicked things up a notch, to say the least. So yeah, thanks to Sean for hooking me up. They reissued Kane with some of the newer Criterion artwork style a little bit later, but there's a small amount of these original silver boxes, and I know some peeps that love collecting those suckers. He also hooked me up with the 3rd Galforce release, Stardust War, which I need to watch part 2 because I own part 1. I might just watch this anyways, even though I haven't seen part 2. But it's got Japanese dialogue with English subtitles. This was US Magacore, Image Entertainment, and under slight nudity, so beware. And then he also hooked me up with Volume 1 of Iria, Zeram the Animation, which I was psyched to have too. That was pretty cool. So I actually have to figure out how many more there are of this and complete the collection. Old Tower video. It's even got the sticker on there. And then he hooked me up with a random imported American film. No Obi strip, sadly, but it's got a hard-off sticker. Somebody must have traded this in Japan. But the Japanese release of Snake Eyes. I do have the American counterpart as well. fairly late release, so it looks pretty good. In fact, what's pretty cool inside here, there's not anything major for an insert, but it does have an advertisement for, you know, things coming out on LD and DVD. So it's interesting, you know, to think about this period when LD and DVD were living concurrently. So yeah, they were pimping that. And then in the middle of October, I went to Retro World Expo in Hartford. I talked about it in one of my previous videos. I was doing a bunch of panels on there, and just hung out in the main floor area because I had a table, as most of the invitees had. So I was able to meet a ton of cool people and just hang out and you know, go shopping myself. And one table did have a bunch of Laserdiscs, and I kept hearing about them. And if it was a snake, it would have bitten me. I was just on the floor at a weird spot. I just didn't look every single time I walked by that area. And so Lance from RetroWare snaked out the DTS discs before I got there. That little stinker. But I did find a bunch of music stuff there, and most of it was like, you know, Kenny G and whatnot. But I did get Singin' and Swingin', Harry Connick Jr., which is, I thought I had this on VHS, but I actually had the next home video release after this. So it's a mix of live stuff and videos from around the When Harry Met Sally album period. And it isn't very rotted or anything like that. Seems to play okay. The jacket's a little beat, but not too bad. And then I met up with a fellow collector who'd reached out and let me know that he had some things for sale if I wanted that. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to take up his offer of getting some of the Urusei Yatsura films and all that sort of stuff. So I had to pare down my list and get a couple of essentials that I needed to complete my Star Trek collection. But I got Star Trek the Motion Picture. Sadly, it's not a gatefold. These are cool. I mean, the picture's pretty good, but on the bummer side, it was like 1991 or so. It does have letterboxing, which is nice, and it's a pretty good-looking transfer, but no chapter stops, which is too bad. So if only they had just given some chapter stops and a gatefold, that would have been nice, too. I had Star Trek Deuce, but I had to get Star Trek Trois, The Search for Spock. I don't know where he is, but he's probably on a planet called Genesis. I would look into that if I were them. Again, this one's just a single disc, so no gatefold there. Dolby Surround, and 1991 again. And this one, there's also a nice director's edition with Leonard Nimoy's signature that came out later that I would love to get. But for now, I've got the 2-disc non-gatefold edition of Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. There be whales here, Captain. And just because, in the name of completionism, I had to get the single disc release of Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. I actually skipped school to go see this with friends, and I worked out this big convoluted deal in which I dropped my mom off at work so I could borrow the car and then go to school. And then I didn't go to school and went to watch this instead. And then throughout some of the failed machinations, my mom found out that I had skipped school that day to go see this. And I was supposed to go hang out with my girlfriend that night, and she shut it down and forbid me from leaving the house. So this crappy movie ruined my chances of getting some action on a random summer night back in 1991 was the release of this on home video. 1989. Yeah, 1989. I think that was the first time I saw Dudes. I had to stay home, so I think I watched Penelope Spheeris' film Dudes on TV instead. So yeah, needless to say, this thing scarred me. And the last release I picked up at the Retro World Expo was a Pioneer Special Edition box I've been meaning to get. It's a little beat, but not too bad. 3 discs. Oh no, only 2 discs. That's so weird. 3 sides. But the really underrated David Twohy film, The Arrival, starring Charlie Sheen. And yeah, for some reason I thought it was more discs than it is. It's got a booklet. Some informative information, and a $6 rebate offer if you buy the CD-ROM Adventure. So, love to get the CD-ROM Adventure. And yeah, just 2 discs. Either way, Moiki's super happy that I have this, so this means we can review it on the podcast at some point. So, I bit the bullet and picked this up, so now I have it for Moiki. I actually just watched this not too long ago. One of those cool films with Ron Silver in it. So, then after Retro World Expo, I ended up hanging out one day with Lance Cortez from RetroWare, and helped put together the entire expo, and was the person that reached out to me and dragged me into this whole experience. And he had mentioned that he had some Outer Limits boxes that he was gonna just donate to me, and I thought that was wicked cool, and went down for a road trip his way, and he happened to mention that there was a store nearby, so I got some stuff there. But first, like I mentioned, those Outer Limits boxes, sadly, I was just talking with Stefan Hamburger about this, about how MGM UA's boxes were so poorly made, and they had a tendency to make the boxes just too damn small for the amount of discs they crammed in there. The Tex Avery boxes and some of the Tom and Jerry boxes are like that too. So this one is definitely a benefactor of that design, because the edges are all splayed out. But the original Outer Limits box, which has the Galaxy Being, the Architects of Fear, the Mutant, Fun and Games, Demon with the Glass Hands, Soldier, Cold Hands, Warm Heart, and the Chameleon. And great show. A lot of great writers on this, including some of the stuff in here that James Cameron was accused of ripping off for the Terminator. But yeah, Robert Towne did some writing, and Harlan Ellison, Joseph Stefano. Yeah, cool stuff. So that's Volume 1. And he also hooked me up with Volume 2. A little bit more put together than the last one, but still, box was a little bit too small for the discs. Nightmare, The Zonti Misfits, The Man Who Was Never Born, The Bolero Shield, It Crawled Out of the Woodwork, The Forms of Things Unknown, The Brain of Colonel Barham, and The Probe in this one. And I always love the MGM disc kits, laser disc kits thing. Another 4-page insert. And these ones are in better shape because they moved these down to 3 discs, and this is actually like a 3-disc sized box, but Volume 3. And instead of giving you the full booklet, they kind of squeezed the booklet onto the back on this one. But it's got The Man with the Power, The Sixth Finger, Corpus Earthling, Don't Open Till Doomsday, A Feasibility Study, and The Duplicate Man. Awesome. And finally, The Outer Limits Volume 4. And likewise, they kind of put the booklet information on the backside. And this one's also only 3 discs, I believe. And comes with Controlled Experiment, Obit, The 100 Days of the Dragon, Tourist Attraction, Keeper of the Purple Twilight, and Specimen Unknown. So, thanks to Lance for hooking a brother up. Shoutouts to Lance. And while I was down his way, he said that we should probably take a trip out to a very cool place out in Bridgeport, Connecticut, which is, if you know anything about Connecticut, pretty much a hole in the earth. And there's not a lot of guys. I mean, there's a cool zoo. You can go to the zoo down there. But it's a big wasteland where we ended up going, just like endless expanse of bombed out urban nothingness. And all of a sudden, out in the middle of this like kind of industrial nightmare, there was this one building, this one red door, and we went and checked it out, and oh my god, yeah, it was great inside, and found a bunch of Laserdiscs. The place is owned by Vinegar Syndrome, who puts out a lot of great Blu-rays, but they had so many cool like shelves just dedicated to specialty, imprints like Arrow, Shout Factory, Scream Factory, and Kino, etc. So I ended up picking up some stuff there too. But keeping it LD, they had an LD section, and one of the guys who worked there was talking to us about how one of the actors in was it Psychos in Love was doing Q&A that they were filming in the store, using the store as a cool backdrop, and he was talking about how he had LDs, and he saw that they had a stash of them there for sale, and he said, oh, you could just have mine. And so I do believe these belonged to him, and they were in gorgeous condition, so I couldn't say no. Film I've been looking forward to getting for a long time on LD. I don't think it's letterboxed, but it wasn't like a super Panavision film anyways. But Abel Ferrara's The Funeral. I saw this on cable a bunch of times back in the 90s, and just interesting character study. Chris Walken's in it, Benicio del Toro, Vincent Gallo, Chris Penn, Isabella Rossellini, Annabella Sciorra. Yeah, cool flick. Evergreen Entertainment put it out. Image. Gorgeous condition. I couldn't say no. And I saw this there, and I mentioned probably in some of my previous videos, I don't actively go out of my way to hunt down a lot of horror on Laserdisc, just because the horror that I want on Laserdisc is usually pretty late-ish release stuff. It's either from their own group or Elite Entertainment, and it usually comes with a high cost. But this was priced very reasonably, and it is a nice Roan Group release from 1998. And of course, I've got the Anchor Bay DVD that ended up using a lot of this same material, but Dario Argento's Tenebrae, and cool flick. This is probably the second Argento film I ever saw. So yeah, it has a kind of place deep in my heart. Really love the vibe of it. The music is fantastic. Some crazy gore, including some gore fountain action at the end. And yeah, it's just a nice, very nice release. And even like the spine's nice and unpunched through. And yeah, it just looks like somebody took really good care of it. And I was super psyched to have that. They also had Bird with the Crystal Plumage, the image release, but you could actually see oxidization on the actual disc itself. I believe it was a 3M pressing, and it was just priced too high for the rot potential, so I couldn't say yes to that. But Tenebrae looks fantastic, no rot or anything like that. And then, yes, after a long wait for yet another slow boat to arrive, I got a copy of something that I'd been excited to check out after watching the movie not too long ago. And this series came out after the movie, and it's really great. I love the artwork of this series. But it's an anime release, the perfect collection of Space Adventure Cobra. And this has definitely seen better days. The edges are all taped up and kind of blacked out, with black tape. So keep it together. But I figured, who cares? The price was right, and it's got the show. So that's all that matters. I'm sure there probably was an insert that came with this, but this did not come with it, nor did it come with any sort of obi or anything like that. Just plain black, very used insert box, and the discs on the insert. Space Adventure Cobra is, yes, early 80s space adventure stuff. It's just got that old school, if you like stuff like heavy metal and all that, you'd probably dig Space Adventure Cobra. It's got a real old vintage sci-fi vibe. Very adult, lots of scantily clad people in this thing, and a lot of bad attitudes. And Cobra's kind of like a Han Solo on like 11 type character. And so yeah, really cool to have these. And volume 1 is riding his cool scooter device there, hover scooter. Yeah, I love the backside. No pun intended. They have all these cool bits of stylish, very 80s artwork photography there. And then volume 2. And these things are in CLV, so you get a couple episodes per side, so about 4 episodes per disc, which is nice. And this is what's cool. I love this cover art. Volume 3. I don't know what that lady's all about, but she's trouble. I've only watched the first couple discs so far. That's awesome stuff. Again, as is most Japanese anime on LD, it is in Japanese with no English subtitles. So have fun, or get a genlock and get some subtitles yourself. And volume 4, more posterior goodness for you there. And then here's where the bummer happened. After kind of going through all that stuff, the box is beat, and but who cares? I want to get disc 5, and there is no disc 5. So there's a disc missing in the set, but there is disc 6. So I got that going for me, and I got the internet to fill in the gaps on what plot I'm missing in between, so I could still power through. But yeah, sadly, it is not complete, so I will be on the hunt again for a proper, complete collection. And then volume 7. And volume 8. Yeah, it's a really cool series. It's got a lot of kind of Total Recall at its heart. Yeah, he's just this schlub type character that everyday Joe that realizes he could be a major space pirate adventurer type guy that has forgotten who he is, and that leads to a whole wild adventure. Great stuff. I love the artwork. I love the kind of creature designs and stuff there. Very, very vintage anime stuff, but yeah, it's wicked freaking cool. So super glad to have 8 of the 9 discs at least. But that'll about do it for keeping us up to date with what I've been picking up lately. And hopefully you enjoyed this romp through the recent inbox. And I don't have any Japanese. I have some Japanese things on hold, but they haven't shipped yet. When they do, I got some cool stuff in there. But I don't have anything in transit that I'm waiting for. So it might be a little while before I get another big batch of new stuff, because I've been investing in things other than LDs lately, speakers and home theater gear and whatnot. But I'll definitely make sure I keep picking up a few things here and there so I can do another update video. But that's it. You're caught up with me on the LD goodness front. So cheers, everybody. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll talk to you soon.